I am on my way to my school. Beautiful morning. Got my workout in. And I gotta tell you guys, my workouts are necessary because without them, I'm telling you, I cannot function. Um, what did I do this morning? I went in and I got into my every other day routine of doing kinesthetics. And I keep mine very simple. I do um, a lot of pull-ups, superset of pull-ups and push-ups, and do a lot of stretching. Listen, I'm 47. I need these joints and these bones to stay strong and these joints to stay limber. So that was my deal for this morning. But now I'm driving and I am reflecting on a conversation that I was part of last night. Um, a bunch of school leaders got together and we had a conversation that took us to this question that stayed with me since last night. I've been really pondering on this. The whole notion of what is a world-class school leader. So we're talking about, I want to say principals, superintendents, anyone who is in the space of leadership within our schools or school systems. I have to say this. It's the first time I've ever heard the term world class and school leadership put in the same sentence. And my brain has been churning because again, in the training to be a school leader, whether it's to be an assistant principal or be a superintendent, or whatever role you are within the system, there's really, if ever, I know at least in my case, I've never been engaged in any of my courses or any of my professional developments around what it looks like to be a world-class school leader. I played football, I ran track, and I know what a world-class athlete looks like. I practiced, dabbled a little bit in jiu-jitsu. I know what a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner looks like. I know what a world-class football player looks like. I know what a world-class track and field star looks like. But, okay, outside of sports, when we talk about attorneys, I mean, when you hear names like Johnny Cochran, world-class, right? I think Jeffrey Gray, I think that was his name, world-class. I might be wrong about that, but I think if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. When we talk about doctors, there are world-class physicians, people who have done incredible work. Ben Carson. When you talk about world-class speakers, Dr. King, Les Brown. Like in all these fields, you have world-class. It's easy to identify what world-class look like. When you come to education, I draw a blank. I mean, we have educators who were not necessarily grounded in the traditional schoolhouse setting, who might just be people who, fall into that role as educators, but they're educated in the world and community. Like I think Maya Angelou was a phenomenal educator. Angela Davis, phenomenal educator. But these are people who their role as educators was in alignment with some great talent that they had. But when we talk about teachers, when we talk about school leaders, when we talk about schools, we don't really ever consider what world class is. And I wonder why. I really do wonder why. Like for example, there's always like a teacher of the year from the United States Department of Education. I don't know who that person is. I don't know who that person is. I don't know what they've done. There's no documentary. There's no study done. Anything to be shared as far as best practices that makes that person teacher of the year, whether it's with state, or whether it's at district level, city level, or federally. But enough of my rant about the fact that defining world class seems really strange in education because that's not something we talk about. But however, if I slow down and actually really ask myself, world class within my frame of understanding. And my thing is this: the way I define world class for me is someone who is so engaged with their craft, as far as an educator, in leadership, that they're thinking about the impact that their work has on the world. Think about that. If you're going to talk about world class, that means whatever's being done has an impact on the planet. Not just in your school community, or in your neighborhood, or within your district, or within your region, or your state, or even within your country. To be world class, in my opinion, whatever you're doing must result in having an impact on the planet. Which means that has to be at the forefront of your thinking, as far as when it comes to your actions that you take and the outcomes that you're pursuing within your school community. Am I wrong about that? I don't think I am. But the problem with that is this: if you're thinking on that level, and you're within a system or a community of educators that don't think like that, you become the weirdo. Or if not a weirdo, you become that guy or that woman, that educator, who's being seen as, they think that they're better than us all. They're always doing the most. They can't just focus on the task at hand and what we're trying to do right here in our locale. They always got to be talking about impacting the world. But shouldn't that be the case? If we're saying we're global citizens and our actions should be representative of what we want to see in the world, shouldn't that be the foundation of how we're educating our students, what we're doing within our schools? So I would say this: based on that definition, I have personally come across school leaders that are world class, because in their way of thinking, they've made paradigm shifts within their personal beings, within their school community, saying that the work that we're doing here is to truly prepare to compete in the world. Not this esoteric, like let's say world as it refers to, in general terms, the community, but no, in the world. It's interesting. I have students of mine that who are now adults, and I follow them on social media, and I see them traveling. I see them in Asia, I see them in Europe, in South America, and they're traveling. They're visiting places and seeing things. Some are actually volunteering in third world countries, and they're actively engaged on the world stage. And I'm so proud of them, because they were kids from the South Bronx who were just kind of like in the same positioning as most kids in the South Bronx. But the one thing that we did, at least for one particular group of kids, is that we were an international baccalaureate school. So there was a framing, an understanding of their learning and education grounded on the fact that they're expected to impact the world. And of course, we understand that now, not every human being is going to completely embrace that, but that was the foundation of our teaching. And I was a dean and assistant principal there. But I would say this: the principals who led that school, had a very clear understanding on the impact that was expected of those students to make on the world. But I'll tell you this, I've been a principal now for 3 schools, and none of my schools have been international baccalaureate schools. They've been regular schools who are just pretty much in alignment with the expectations of the Department of Education here in, I'm sorry, New York City Public Schools now. It's now New York City Public Schools. But however, I have never been able to deny the fact that my upbringing as I hate saying immigrant, but as an African, born African, who migrated here to America, then settled here, and have always had a connection with the greater planet because I was born in another part of the planet. I lived in the Middle East, and I've seen my fair share of Earth. I cannot ignore the importance of education being grounded with our children and how they participate on the planet. And I know quite a few other principals who are thinking in that space. But beyond thinking in that space, there's another factor with being world class. Because you're thinking like that, everything you do is really about the total preparation of the child to be in that space. We're not just saying we need to have a certain percent of proficiency so we look good for our district. We're not just saying we just need this percentage of kids passing so we can beat another school. We're saying that the kids who are not meeting proficiency, the kids who are not making growth, the kids who are struggling, need to be supported and addressed, because that's a percentage of our future population. They're not going to be ready to engage the planet and to play their role. So as a result, my thinking is always, okay, what are we doing to push all of our kids? What are we doing to expose them to the world? What are we doing to make sure they're getting ready? But again, I'll tell you this, and I'm going to speak for myself, that kind of thinking is so divergent to what the norm is. And people might say, no, it's not, but it really is. Because again, it's weird that the first time that I was engaged in a conversation of what world class means or could mean was yesterday evening, and this is going to be, I'm going on my 20th year since my connection to New York City Public Schools, and 22 years since my connection to education in general as a professional. And never have I engaged in a conversation about what world class is. But one thing I want to say is, you want more principals and school leaders and district leaders thinking like this, you got to open the stage or create the space for world-class conversations. And these world-class conversations have to require that we're allowing school leaders to engage with other school leaders across, not only across the country, but across the planet. I take that back. It's only through International Baccalaureate that I ever met principals from other countries, or school leaders from other countries. And I was an assistant principal, and I went to a conference in Florida, and in that conference, there were people who were there in St. Pete's, Florida, who were coming from Asia and coming from the Middle East and coming from Australia, and we were there. And for me, it was by happenstance, but I know they were going to be there. And there were these moments of conversations of what things look like over there, what things look like over here. But I wonder, what would it be like to actually say, as part of my professional development and my growth as a school leader, I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Finland, engaging and spending time in their schools and observing and seeing what is it that you're doing that I can take back with me. Spend time in Africa. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, Africa, yes, third world and all that, blah, 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 semantics. But consistently, and I'm not saying this because I'm African, I'm saying this as an American, as a school leader here in America, consistently, the top performing students have tended to be third world country, kids who are immigrants from a third world country. Almost all the time. And I always wonder why. Because if we're the greatest nation on the planet, we have the most resources, but we have kids who are coming from Mexico, kids who are coming from Ghana, Cameroon, Senegal, coming from Vietnam. And when you talk to them, they're coming from abject poverty. But they land here, and as soon as they adapt, they excel, like I'm talking about extremely excel. And you're like, wait a minute, but I thought they were third world. And clearly, if you're third world, you don't have the resources to perform on a high level. But you come here and you blow it out the park. And you literally hit it out the park. There are things happening around the world that we don't get to see. There are things happening around the world that I feel like sometimes are hidden from us. Because if we were to really engage the world and see best practices across the world, those best practices will come here. And with the resourcing we have, would make schools in some of the poorest communities in America, would make them some of the best schools in the world as well. Because at the end of the day, the power to turn schools around is not in curriculum. And I'll say this, it's not in pedagogy. Those things are necessary. It's not in the environment. Even though these things are very important, are essential, but the real power to change, for change, is in the human beings who are motivated to do the work, or in the human beings who say, hey, I want to do more. I want to do more. And that is the thing that I feel we're missing. We're not allowing for amazing people who have committed all of themselves into this work to really, truly do the work. Usain Bolt, the fastest man who ever lived, I think his record's still standing. I think some of his record's still standing. He says he trained 3 years, hardcore 3 years for 9 seconds. You know, Super Bowl's around the corner. You know, the 49ers going up against Kansas City. A lot of these athletes and these teams have been training their whole entire lives, Pop Warner football, youth football, JV, you know, then varsity, high school, then college, you know, to spend 3 hours to play a football game, to be national champions. They're seen, they're rewarded, they're resourced. But in education, public education specifically, we have people out here who've committed their lives to this work. But however, they're chained, literally chained, and not allowed to truly invest all of who they are in a way that it reflects in amazing school spaces. It's a lot to think about. I just wanted to create this video this morning and get this off my chest. Because again, I really believe that we have world-class leaders, world-class teachers, world-class educators, but they're hiding, or better yet, they're being hidden. Some of them don't even know that that's what they are. They just function in a bubble. So if we want to truly create or use the term world-class, we have to allow the best amongst us to engage the rest of the world so that we can further the work in our schools and really support the whole entire nation's educational system. All right, y'all. This is Uche Njoku, Sneaker Principal, having a wonderful day. We'll talk soon. Peace.